Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dragonfire podcast. My name is Nathan Klumbara. I'm a reviewer and blogger at the Before We Go blog, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, James Doolin, who is the author of No Heart for a Thief. And today we have another great episode. It's the second part of our SPFBO participant interview panel thing. So today we have three more wonderful self-published fantasy authors who are all a part of SPFBO 9. So I'll just have all of you introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your book, your SPFBO entrant, and yeah, just about whatever you want to sell, whatever you want to pitch. So Sadir, we'll start with you.
All right. Well, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Sadir Samir. I'm the author of this book, The Crew. The sales pitch is basically Kings of the Wild meets Deadpool. So that should give you kind of a sense of what kind of humor or adventure type book it is. It's kind of a heist story, and it's pretty self-explanatory. We got a crew. They have a heist going, taking down this big ruler in a desert city. And yeah, dark comedy, basically.
All right, awesome.
Yeah,
Bethany?
Yeah, I'm Bethany. I write under BSH Garcia. My book, Thieves and Shadows, just came out this June. It is the first in an epic fantasy series. I've been pitching it as Disney's Atlantis meets Game of Thrones, so do with that what you will. It's centers on a secondary world that has a resource that's at the brink of depletion, and all of our 6 POV characters are kind of thrown together in a similar quest where they're trying to uncover the reason why and perhaps prevent it, but they all have their own motives and don't know that they're kind of working against each other. So I'd say fans of epic fantasy, like the classic style Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, might like it if they're looking for something that is different and completely anti-medieval and Eurocentric in every way possible.
Cool.
Very
and then
cool.
NC?
I'm NC Koussis, the author of The Sword of Mercy and Wrath. My elevator pitch, I guess, is kind of funny. It's gone through many different iterations, but it's like if you cross The Witcher and a gothic horror movie like Sleepy Hollow or Van Helsing. It's got werewolves as the main like supernatural creature. In fact, it's the only supernatural creature. I don't know why I said main, but yeah. So it's all about like, are they the real monsters or humans the real monsters, that sort of thing. But also there's an element of religious indoctrination, and colonialism starts to become more of a thing as you get further into the series. So the second book just came out, The Pyres of Vengeance, and yeah.
Well, are you still going with Grimbark as the kind of genre?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of fortuitous kind of naming because it works so well, but it is grimdark with a touch of bark.
very good.
Well, we're all here because you all entered SPFBO. For those of you, the listeners who might not know, it's a self-published fantasy blog off, and this is a competition that happens every year. It's been started by the author Mark Lawrence, and 300 books enter this year. 300 books were entered within 40 minutes, and then 10 blogs take on 30 books apiece and whittle it down to 10 by November, right? And then we'll start seeing who ends up being the top one of 300 entries. So it's a very long process. It takes about a year to get through. So why did you do this to yourself? It's a little bit of an intimidating thing. So why did you do this? What's the benefit and what's the intimidating part of it? Bethany, you want to start us off?
Sure. So for me, it was more of a why not. I found out about it kind of cutting it close to the time to enter, and I wasn't going to enter, but I woke up in the middle of the night. It was like 3 a.m. my time that the entries were going to open, and My book was about to launch just a couple of weeks later, so I pulled some strings and entered last minute, kind of got it under the line, and actually moved my launch date up to qualify to be in the competition. I think the hardest part for me was just pulling down that. I'm always kind of wishy-washy with big decisions, and when I do make them, it's very spur of the moment, even though there's been a lot of thought behind it. And I think there is some kind of stress waiting for the axe to fall, because for most of us it will. But I also got a lot of that fear of rejection out of my system, both from querying track and also a brief acting career in LA. And so I think I've just spent a lot of my life banging down doors and having people tell me no. So the way I see this, it doesn't hurt to enter, and only good things can come of it. So.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see there's much point holding back from any sort of competition like this. It's basically free publicity, right?
Yeah. Is there anything that's intimidating you about the process? Are you just having a good time with it?
Yeah, I'm kind of just sitting back and relaxing. I'm just starting to get back into writing after finishing the second book now. So it's been about 6 weeks since I've actually written anything on a page. But yeah, I've just been sitting here like, oh, I just expect it to sort of drop out at any moment. So I'm just having fun. I will say, like, the waiting is probably the hardest thing. Like just waiting around for 6 months before you find out if you're a finalist or not. And then another 6 months after that before you find out if you won.
Yeah.
How about you, Sadir? Did you get in this to win it all?
I mean, that would be pretty sweet, wouldn't it? I've been following the competition since 2016, actually, and I've seen like the community growing over the years, and the results that it has yielded for a lot of the people just that just participated in the competition, even though they didn't win it or didn't even get into the finalists. It's a great way of connecting with other authors and with the bloggers, and like you lose nothing by entering it, except maybe like you're going to be kind of nervous about it, and some anxiety going here and there whenever the judges post any updates and stuff like that. But I mean, that's a part of it, and I think it's a really cool thing to be a part of, even if it doesn't pan out and you get cut in the first round. I think I've already met some people, Bethany and James and NC. I mean, you're in it as well, James. So
yeah.
Yeah. Why did you do it to yourself is the question.
Yeah, exactly. Right back at you. Yeah.
For the same reasons I think you all said, I think part of it is my internal wants to have external validation, and hoping to get that from any kind of competition, and knowing I'll probably be disappointed in the end, but it's also a good experience, and it kind of gamifies publishing a little bit, where we get to play around and see who's gonna take the next step forward in the competition. It's fun. It's the same reason we put points to a lot of different things. It just makes it fun sometimes.
Yeah.
And also doesn't mean everything as well. Like Ryan Cahill's books got eliminated in the first round, and obviously he's doing quite well for himself now. So it's not the be all and end all either.
Yeah. I also think it's cool that it brings everyone together, like focused on this thing, like, and everybody's talking about it. It's dying out a bit now, but like the first couple of weeks, it felt like everyone was talking about it, right? And making videos. And we got all our booktubers this year, which is kind of new, I think. That part of the book community haven't really been involved in previous years, to my knowledge, that much. But this year we have a lot of big name booktubers also that's bringing more eyes to the competition. So yeah, it's a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah,
that's actually been really astounding from my point of view, is that indie publishing has seen such a huge surge in the last couple of years, because big booktubers are finally going, okay, there's actually some pretty decent talent that isn't, because I think quite a few of them are just like, indie books are crap, but now they're like, oh well, wait, there's actually quite a lot of talent here. It's just that they didn't get picked up by an agent or a publisher for some reason, and doesn't mean that they're not a good writer or. Yeah.
Or people that didn't even try to get traditional deal, like it went straight to indie.
Yeah, that's right. Like, yeah.
I think people are just so behind the times with indie books too. I just saw something on Twitter the other day about how we worship the indie musician and the indie artist, and like we seek that stuff out. Even indie films are like cult classics. So, why should books be any different, especially when the same care and love and attention is being put into them?
Totally.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
right.
You don't hear anybody saying that indie artists who are musicians are self-published or self-promoted artists. They're indies. So it's an interesting dynamic. But that gets us into the next question. So why indie publishing? What are the benefits of going this route? Bethany, you mentioned that you queried a little bit in the traditional realm of publishing. So why did you go this way eventually?
So when I first looked at it, it was very much one of those things where I hadn't put enough research into how feasible it was. So to me, just the idea of indie publishing was unattainable. I didn't figure that I would ever get the finances or the time on the back end. And I think when you're newer to writing, you have this fantasy of just sitting and writing and not having to do any of the work. And so I edited for a couple of years, had multiple rounds of betas, and then I started querying, and I got plenty of rejections, some pull requests in there. But what finally changed my mind was actually getting an offer from a small press and reading the contract that they sent me. And I was like, yikes, I don't want to sign over all of my rights for this. And just looking at the fine print, at least of this particular, I won't say their name, but just kind of some of the stuff they had written in as far as like how they were even going to handle the marketing. And I just got a lot of red flags. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I could keep going and keep querying, and I might finally find an agent, but how much more of this do I want to sit through of all of these maybes and these potentials? For a lot of people, the trad road can take years to get a single book out there. And then even then, there's no guarantee that you'll continue to publish with that press, that they're going to, accept any future books from you. So I think that was a huge part of it. The control, to me, seems like it's huge for a lot of indie authors, but what I've really come to notice and love about it is the endless opportunities where I might only have one shot with trad and it could tank in their eyes and I might never get that much backing behind me again. I can treat every single project the rest of my life like the most anticipated debut of the year and give it all of that love and attention and just like keep having that first shot every time. And I think that's what appeals to me the most.
Yeah. I totally agree about the point about being in control and also the waiting times, right? Like you hear these stories like somebody sends in their book, everything's finished. It takes like 2 or 3 years before we actually see it on shelves. And I mean, I just can't justify that in any logical way, right? I tried querying for about, I think, a 2-month period or so, and I had some success getting full manuscript requests and stuff like that. But even just waiting those 2 months completely sucked. Like I hated, waiting for an email to drop and just being like, I did not enjoy the feeling of it at all. And
well, you were lucky. 2 months is quick in the querying world.
Yeah, exactly. And that was too much for me, like I just felt like, because that we're just at the querying stage, right? And then you hear like, okay, if you land an agent, then they might need 6 to 12 months to sell the book, right? And then the publishers need like one a year or two, to get everything ready. And I'm like, am I going to see this book out like in 2027? The book is done. Like people can read it. You know what I mean?
Sometimes,
and that doesn't make sense to me, especially these days, when we have everything we need to be able to do this ourselves, right? And I think like the traditional book industry is also suffering quite a bit. We're hearing more and more horror stories, about how people are treated and editors leaving and, just a bunch of stuff, and how some authors are completely buried by their publishers because they're not like really getting in behind them, right? And they're pushing other books. I don't know. It's not an environment I want to be in. I worked in a been working with video game development in over 10 years, and it's a lot of the same bullshit, to be honest with you, with a lot of shareholders and meetings and people deciding stuff and jumping through hoops, just to get things done. Yeah, I don't like it.
I spoke to an agent a little while back. I was querying him, but it wasn't it didn't go anywhere. But he said to me that basically that publishing is run by the marketers and the advertisers now. Mm-hmm. They're not run by people who actually care about the books in any meaningful capacity beyond how much it will sell. And so, they always look, even the big five, well, especially the big five, big four, three, whatever they are now, they go, this book will sell, or they believe it will sell. Let's put all our eggs behind that, we'll put all our eggs in that basket. Mm-hmm. And then, little person over here, mid-list author over here, they get, nothing. They get no help whatsoever, or they get very little. And I think that was the main draw of traditional publishing for a long time, is that they could get you anywhere. They could get you in any bookstore. They could get you a huge exposure. They could do the marketing for you. But now we see, with the consolidation of everything, is that then the shrinking of the money pools that seem to be going into these things, that, you have to do your own marketing now, basically, unless you're like George R. R. Martin.
Yeah.
So what's the point? You may as well just go indie and get a higher royalty. Like you make more money if you hit the same level.
Yeah. I just want to mention, because Beth, you mentioned that you worked in Los Angeles and stuff. Like, if you look behind the scenes, a lot of like great filmmakers these days, if you read about their bios and things, like, for example, Rian Johnson, directed Star Wars and stuff. Like, he tried for 8 years to get his first movie picked up in Hollywood, and it didn't go anywhere. And he waited 8 years, Finally, he brought in the funds himself with family and friends, and he made the movie called Brick, and released it. And that was a huge success. And then Hollywood came to him and like, hey, like, now we want you, but for 8 years of his life, right? Just going around waiting, hoping. And then finally he did it himself. So he started indie, actually. And you can find a lot of script writers and directors that decided to go their own way, make something, and then get picked up later, if that's even what they want in the first place. Just want to mention that.
No, I totally agree. I think a lot of just big, whether it's publishing or film or whatever it may be, they don't really want to take risks on something. And so if it's not guaranteed to sell based on what's been trending or what they've made trending in recent years, then they're not going to take a gamble on you until you've proven that you can do it yourself. And then at that point you're like, well, I don't need you anymore.
To stick on to marketing for a second, what have your experiences and strategies been for marketing your books? Because one of the things about the big four or whatever publishers is they always seem to be chasing these trends. And one of the trends right now seems to be Bookstagram, and particularly Book Talk. And the focus really is on like romantic fantasy, which none of your books tend to like fall under. So what have your strategies been for marketing, and what successes or road bumps have you hit? Don't know who wants to start off, if anybody has an answer. Bethany,
I can start. Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't really know what works and what doesn't, to be quite honest. I guess you just try everything, and I think it's what was it? God, I forget his name now. Sorry, the author of Sons of Darkness.
Sorry
to him, but
he
mentioned
right
something
right now.
Well, we'll look it up. Maybe I'll just look it up. I don't want to be Gaurav Mohanty.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He said that basically there was a thing a little while back about like marketing thing, and it was like you need to be basically a catcher's mitt, and like the more I'm paraphrasing, but you need to be in all of these different things. Like you have nothing to lose by being on TikTok, you have nothing to lose by being on Instagram, Twitter, etc., Discord, and the more places you are, the bigger your MIT, and you can catch that person that's coming through. And the wider your MIT, the more people you can catch, and you can be, you're always trying to get in as many places as possible and appeal to as many people as possible. So why not get into as many, And so I don't have the time these days to do TikTok and stuff, and it's what works for you. Obviously, if you don't think you can do these videos, if it's not for you, then don't do them. But if you can, why not?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, actually. I think like if you don't do it organically and that you don't actually enjoy the process of it, that will show. Like if you go on TikTok and try to get into the book thing happening over there because some authors got viral because of TikTok, like it's gonna shine. I think it's gonna shine through. It's not like really authentic. You're not really enjoying it, kind of forcing yourself. I don't know. I might be wrong, and I might be using it as an excuse for why I'm not doing it, because I'm lazy or something. But like, yeah, there's so many different places you can go to, but I don't think you can like divide all of your energy into all of these places and keep up the same thing. And at some point it becomes like almost too salesy, sales pitchy,
Yeah, I think they can see through that bullshit. Like,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I think, one important aspect is just like being part of the community, interacting, being a nice person. And another tool really for your marketing is like, investing in the book that you put out, right? Like all of us have, we invested in great covers, professional editors, all of that stuff, and then you let the stories speak for themselves. But what you can do besides that is just like be a nice person to be around, have good interactions with people, don't be an asshole, lift other people up when you can, share books that you read and love. I think those things can really make a difference for you. Like if you just, not try to sell at every moment you can and just be a part of something. And I think I find that a lot of readers, like they want to support people that they think are nice, and I remember before I published, like if an author online was kind to me or something, when I tagged them in a review or whatever it was, like I'd be like forever a loyal fan. I'm like, I'm buying your book hardcover day one, from now to eternity.
Yeah.
I think you can't underestimate like how far it goes to just be a decent person online, and to be authentic in all of your interactions. I've definitely taken the throwing the spaghetti against the wall to see where it sticks approach with social media. I built an Instagram kind of presence and community for a number of years before I even published, and that was just built off of genuine friendships with other writers and readers. So when it came time for me to publish, I had a lot of people in my corner supporting me just because I had fostered those friendships leading up to it. And so there was like, I didn't have to chase down so many people to like boost my stuff because people were just organically like excited for me and wanting to be a part of it. And I do dabble in a variety of like, I try to not shut myself down from any social media fully, because I do think there are groups of people that are on specific platforms only, and to get to get your book in front of as many readers as possible, it helps to be there. I did my cover review on TikTok. I bit the bullet there and got on, even though I'm not in the romanticy vein, and it got me a decent amount of interest in there, I think, because it's such a visual platform, and it didn't heavily in my cover. So I think that was huge. I got a whole stream of ARC readers that kind of came in through that venue, but it's very exhausting to make videos, and I've let it kind of just die out because I can't, with the amount of time it takes to edit it and find the trending views. Like it hasn't been worth it for me there. But I think just trying to show up in the spaces that are resonating with you at that time, or maybe resonating with other people at that time, and just not only and always talking about your book is huge. I mean, I think it does work for some people to do that, but I personally struggle with the accounts where that's all you see is just blast, this is my book, this is why you should read it, there's a sale. And I think it's more like the long game. So I'm not in it for the quick growth. I'd rather just build a community of genuine people, because those are the people I like to spend time with anyway.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of you have already said it, that a lot of indie is about being able to control your pacing of when you release a book. And NC, you're the only one on this panel that has 2 books out now, but I've heard at least that nothing sells your first book like your second. So has that worked out for you in terms of marketing, releasing a second book, really pushing along your first?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. June was a record sales month for me when the second one came out. That was, I think it was also the timing with SPFBO and that, but it's just been, to see that response to the second one has been incredible. And I think what was really helped in that regard is just I think the majority of it was the covers, to be quite honest. You can't say enough about having a great cover, and so many people have said these books are beautiful. I don't care what's in them, which is good and bad. It's like, I still want you to read it. I still want you to like it, but cool if you're going to buy it.
Too.
So they've said these books are beautiful. I want them on my shelf. And so, I've seen a pretty good response with physical copies, actually. The majority of them have been Kindle sales, but I've had quite a few physical sales as well. Actually, more hardcovers for the second one than the paperbacks, which has been interesting.
Well, it does have a beautiful cover with that big werewolf on the front.
Yeah. I'm very proud of what Nino did. He's incredible.
Have any of you noticed, just entering SPFBO giving you a bump in sales or a bump in visibility? Because at one time it seemed like to get visibility, you needed to win SPFBO. And then for the last couple of years, it seems like you just needed to be a finalist. And now it just seems like you just need to enter the competition to get noticed. So if any of you noticed that over the past, 6 weeks or whatever we've been in the SPFBO competition?
Yeah.
But you released the second book in the same month, right, NC?
SPFBO was I did see a bump when SPFBO happened, when they announced the entries and stuff. And that was the middle of May.
Okay.
So my second one didn't come out until the 1st of June.
So
there was a bit of a lead in to the second one coming out, but it all worked out quite well. I think it all fed into each other for me. But I definitely did see that bump before for the first one, and then the second one came a bit after.
Okay. Yeah, my sales have been pretty steady since I published 7 months ago now, I think. So I don't recall like a major bump or anything around that time, to be honest with you. Been lucky to have good sales, what I consider good sales, every month. I've seen the biggest bumps when we've done like collaborative indie book sales and stuff like that, like when you get a lot of eyes, I think we had one in April. I don't remember what it was called. That was like a great month for a lot of indies, I think, that took part in that one.
The Narratist book sale, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Indie April, was it? Oh.
Was it?
Yeah, Narratist. Yeah.
I think she's doing another one in August.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for that was just getting on Reddit, because there's so many people on Reddit. I got to get in on Reddit, and because there's so many loyal people, so many interested people in there. Yeah, but it's really hard because the mods are very anti self-promotion. It's very hard.
Yep.
You can't even say you're an author without them like being like, nah, get rid of you. We'll delete that comment because it was self-promotion. Like, what? How are you supposed to tell anyone?
They're very strict.
Yeah.
But their audience and their user base is so different in terms of their demographics and what they're into than most of the other major platforms as well, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, let's go to the dream question of, we roll around. It is next, April when they'll announce, and they announce that your book is a winner, or even you made it to finals, and a traditional publishing house comes to you with an offer. It's one of the big 5. They're interested in signing you. are you going to take that approach? Are you going to take that offer? What are the things that you want to do if you end up being a finalist or a winner?
First, I'm going to scroll through and see if it's an agent I queried previously, and then reject them.
Petty. I like it.
Thank you.
I like that too. Yeah.
Honestly, for me, it's so hard to say. It would have to be like an unmatchable deal for me to consider it. And I don't know though, because like 2 years ago, I would have never even considered indie publishing. It just wasn't something that I ever saw myself doing or on my radar. So just knowing how much can change in personal life and your writing life in the course of months or even, a year, I can't say with absolute confidence what I would do other than I would analyze the hell out of whatever contract was being offered to me and have a good long think on it.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, it would have to be a huge offer, I think, for me to consider, like Harper or something, and with just a big advance. But even then, if you put yourself in that basket, you become and you don't sell out of your advance, then you're the author who bombed. Like you bombed a 6-figure advance or a 7-figure advance, and that's a huge risk because you'll never get published again if that happens, or not never, but it'd be very, very, very hard to get published again, traditionally at least.
At this point, honestly, I don't see that happening, even if I was offered something, just because I'm not really interested in entering and being part of that world. I'm enjoying this process way too much, just being on my own and doing my own thing, and just like impressing myself with running all of this stuff and putting everything together, stuff that like all of us have done that many of us never had any previous experience with, right? Like we had to research, we had to look into things, and I thought that I was going to hate that part of it, the business aspect of it, but actually I'm enjoying it. And just being in control of setting when you're releasing the books and like deciding on your cover art and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I love that.
It's like it's too lucrative at this point to give up all of that control, like because I'm not doing this for the money, right? Not really. And it's not like they're going to offer, even if you get an offer, it's not going to be that much money. I mean, it's pretty rare in the book industry to even, I don't know how many people even get like 6 figures and stuff like the pay is pretty shitty based on what you hear from a lot of people, right? Like, it's like I make more money writing for video games than in a year than most of those big contracts. I'm not saying that to gloat, I'm just being like frank. So no, I honestly, I don't see that happening. The only thing that you miss out on is that they can get the book to a much bigger audience, right? That is the cool thing that they have because of their channels. But I still don't think it's worth it, to be honest with you. Not in 2023. Maybe a couple of years ago, but now I think this is the golden era of indie books, and
I think as soon
as
if
you have that approach.
I was just going to say, as soon as the indie gets picked up for like a Netflix deal or something like that, then I think you'll see some tables turning as well, because that hasn't really happened, except if you think of, Silo, but that was picked up traditionally before it went over to Apple. But if somebody got picked up directly from indie, I think that would change the tables a lot, because you just had how many big Kickstarters this last year where Zach Argyle got over $100,000 on his Kickstarter, and ML Wong got over $200,000. Daniel Green is over $100,000 in his first 3 days or something like that. Will White reached $1 million. Like, there's some big money in indie right now. There's not any adaptation deals yet, though.
There's also like some stuff, like some decision making in trad publishing that I just can't wrap my head around. Like, for instance, Jonathan French won SPFBO with Grey Bastards in, I don't know, 2015, 2016, I don't remember. And he commissioned his artwork from Raymond Swanland, which is like a fantastic artist, that does Magic the Gathering. And I don't know, he's super famous and the artwork is awesome. Got picked up by Orbit and they changed it to one of the worst covers ever. Everybody was like, and he was soul crushed by that decision, and he couldn't do anything about it. I can't believe, why they decided to do that. Justin Anderson that won SPFBO a couple of years ago with what's his book called? The Lost War.
The Lost War.
The Lost War,
yeah. So like you win the competition, he signs with the trad publisher, and they make the book unavailable for over 2 years. Like all of the hype, all of the readers that learned about the book from they weren't able to get it.
Yeah.
They also did the strangest rollout where the ebook became available like last December, but then paperback, which is the official release, was in this past May or something. It was really weird.
What's up with that? You know what I mean? It's like those. I just can't understand, and to not be able to like say anything about that or do anything, you're like, okay, I guess my book's not going to be available for 2 years then.
Yeah.
You're like,
because like saying they're quite. Oh, you go. Sorry.
I was just gonna say like that it's a real fear, like relinquishing that control and having like for me, I am in love with my cover and my artist, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And that was something I sold mid-series, and they just took that away and slapped it with something really basic, or had input or feedback on how they wanted me to finish the series. Like I can't imagine like taking it in a different direction than I'm intending right now. And
definitely. Yeah, I was going to say that like it's just a matter of, I think, sorry, I've just completely lost the train of thought. Yeah. Sorry, maybe it will come back to me, but
we'll come back to you.
Lost it. Yeah.
Before we switch over and get over to our little gamified Dragonfire segment, can you tell us a little bit about what you have planned for the next year or so? What's coming out? Are you releasing book 2, Sadir and Bethany? What's coming down the pipeline? Sadir, you want to start us off?
Sure. The plan is to release the second book in the Goddust series exactly 1 year after the first one. So that would be November 29th. So I'm currently writing my ass off trying to make that happen. And hopefully I'll make that happen. But that's the goal. The goal is to release 1 book a year going forward. I think that is doable. But I guess I have to what's the expression? I guess I need to prove that, right? So we'll see. Ask me again in a couple of months if I succeeded or not.
Bethany?
Yeah, I'm planning to do about a book a year as well. Just right now for me in my life, it's only feasible to turn out like a full epic fantasy multi-POV at a rate of 1 book a year. But I am planning to release novellas or novelettes every 6 months, kind of in between that, just to keep people invested in the story and give them something to read if they can't wait. So I'm about to start drafting, put a pause on book 2 because I hit a roadblock with it. And it's something that I'm kind of planning to explore more through the novella anyway. So I'm going to be drafting that and releasing that, I think, early January. I just booked a spot with my editor. And then book 2 will be coming out in June. So a year to date from the first book.
Nice. And NC?
Yeah. Well, as you know, I just released my second one. So, but I don't know that I'll put the third one out until probably mid next year as well. Like I'll probably give it a year before I really get into, because it is coming to there's 5 books in the series, but the third one will be the mid-season kind of finale. And it's going to take a little while to get my head around where I want the series to be by the third one, but also everything that goes into it, because there's 2 books prior to that I need to draw from and make sure it all comes together and makes sense. Plus, I'm also trying to finish a PhD, and that's like I'm finishing this year and writing my thesis and that. So I'm currently, and I've got a 10-month-old as well. It's just been very busy time. But I am hoping next year I can release at least one book. But I am also working on another series as well. The first book in a trilogy is set completely differently. It's like in medieval Greece. Yeah, with a lot of mythology inspiration. So yeah, it should be fun. But maybe 1 or 2 books in the next year or so.
Damn, man. Damn. I'm just writing my own PhD dissertation. That's all I'm doing, and I'm exhausted.
Yes, I live off coffee. I have an IV drip just out of shot, and it's coffee straight into my veins.
All right. Well, I think we're ready to move on to our Dragonfire segment.
I think so. It has come that time in our podcast where we're going to have our Dragonfire segment. Our Dragonfire segment is a quick topic segment where we get to go through 4 or 5 topics really quickly, 3 minutes on the clock for all of us to answer to whatever topic is brought up. It's anything within the realm of sci-fi, fantasy, nothing too serious. We're all just going to kind of have a good time with this. And then we're going to start out with, what if your book was picked up for a film adaptation? Are you going to go with a Marvel budget, but with B-list actors, so not your household names? Or are you going to go indie movie budget, but you can have your dream actor to play your lead? So what are you going to do? And NC, I'm going to toss it to you first. What do you think?
Damn, that's a really hard question. I think probably indie budget. I think an indie budget with like not so much my dream actor, but I would get my dream director, which is Rian Johnson.
Okay.
He's my favorite director at the moment. He's really, really like snappy. Really does. I don't know about grimdark. I don't know if he can do that dark fantasy, but we'll see what he can work with. And he's worked with indie budgets before, so he's been quite good at that.
That's fair. Bethany.
I would definitely go big budget and nobody actors. But that's just from a personal preference with a lot of like book to film adaptations, I think it's easier for me to view a no-name actor and have them just step into that role and become that character, instead of it being, some A-lister and you just can't unsee what they're known for. And they're trying to be this character, but you can't wrap your mind around it. And also just having it be a secondary world with like a lot of world building. I want as much budget as possible to throw out all of the cinematography and all of the costuming and makeup and special effects.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good point. So like with Game of Thrones, the budget was huge, but they were all nobodies.
Yeah.
Like even Sean Bean was kind of just a nobody until Game of Thrones. And then, yeah, like because they were these blank slates, they could be anything.
How dare you say
I'm going to change my
Bean?
I'm going to change my answer.
Just because Sean Bean gets killed off and everything.
And hey, season 1 Game of Thrones, their budget wasn't that big, I don't think. I think it was like
It's
pretty
true.
in line with like what HBO was doing at the time. So
that's true.
I'm gonna go with the same answer as Beth, and then later NC. I'm gonna go with the big budget, just because it's fantasy. I have a lot of weird demons, and I have a scene towards the end that would need some CGI stuff and things like that. But I would also like James Gunn to direct it, but because I think he would get the tone that I have in my book, because he's also a bit weird. But I have to go with big budget and no-name actors as my answer.
Are you doing practical makeup effects or CGI for the demons?
Oh, practical all the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, with a no budget, the practical effects would have some interesting looking demons.
True. I
mean, like a Muppet.
Yeah.
You see the strings.
It looked okay in the early Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
Right. It looked okay. Maybe. I don't know.
I would have to go the same. I can't I just don't want like Avatar: The Last Airbender graphics where like there's a whole dance scene and then a few rocks move. Like if there's going to be magic, I need it to be magical.
Yeah.
So I would go with the Marvel budget for that. And also like I would rather my actors be associated with the film they produce in response to my book rather than be known for everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
And really quick follow-up for everybody really fast. Would you want a film adaptation or like a TV show adaptation?
Definitely a show. I just very rarely see it where like the film can do it justice. You'd have to have a very short, concise book, I feel like, for it to work, especially in our genres. I feel like the only way to go is at least a mini series of something else.
I would actually go for a film, a movie. My book is not as big as some other chunkers in the fantasy genre, and it's quite tight and fast paced and kind of cinematic in its approach. So I think it would work better as a film. And then, I'm writing a trilogy, so like 3 films to wrap up the whole thing. I think that would work.
Yeah, I think I'd probably say the same. There would be a movie for the first one and then the TV series for the second and the rest. Because the pacing actually, like the first one is really quick in terms of pacing, but and the second one slows down a bit.
It's a multimedia approach.
Yeah, like what they've been trying to do with the Dark Tower for 5-10 years now.
Yeah.
I would probably go TV show, miniseries kind of thing.
Yeah. James, I think we need to like send this podcast to like people who study survey psychology, because the answers this episode are the complete opposite than the discussion we had with our first SPFBO group. But I think it's because of the way you phrased the question. I think in the last episode you phrased the question as like you got bad actors, and in this
you phrased it as question as you got.
Is that how I phrased it? Oh, I was like wondering why we got such different answers, and I was like, it's the way we phrased the question.
Well, we'll have to go to the tape because yes, that was totally. I was confused. I'm like B-list actors. You're like, they're awful, they're horrible, they can't act at all. And then we just went down the route of how funny can we make this with bad acting and bad graphics, which might work for the crew in a very like meta way. Just so we're just 4 SPFBO offers here. There are 300 out there. Let's take a little bit of a chance to shout out another SPFBO 9 author. Bethany, do you want to shout somebody out?
Yeah, there are so many, but I think the first person that comes to mind for me is Jessica McMinn. She was I was a part of a giveaway that she organized for me and some other debut authors, and I ultimately ended up hearing about the contest through her as well. So she wrote a great book called The Ruptured Sky. It's a grim dark, and she's just a great person, and the story's fantastic.
Sadir.
I've read 3. I think I've read 3 SPFBO entrants. Can I only choose one, or can I mention all 3 of them?
Go for it.
Go for it. All right, we got Curse of the Fallen by H.C. Newell, dark fantasy, very nice. We got The Bleeding Stone by Joseph Lee, also very good. And we also have A Gamble of Gods by Mithril Feywood, which is also a very good, cool book. Mixes sci-fi and fantasy.
And she has really cool sprayed edges.
I was just thinking about her sprayed edges.
Yeah, she has. Yep.
The things that authors care about, like, can I get sprayed edges? NC.
Yeah, one of my favorite books last year was Kia Nardeland's 11th Cycle. It's really, really fucking fantastic book. I don't think it's for everyone though, which is kind of funny. It's like, I think it will go quite far in this competition though. And who else is there? I didn't read a lot of books last year because I was trying to scramble to write pyres, but early this year I read Gregory Contaxis's Return of the Knights as well, which is quite good. Yeah, I quite enjoyed that one.
I was going to shout out Joshua Scott Edwards with An Ocean of Others. I actually haven't been able to read his book yet, but we've been, talking back and forth for about a year. And the thing with the indie community is, there are so many amazing people out there that are willing to help you and give you advice and connect with you. And it's such a mutually beneficial community that I just enjoy it. And so Joshua has definitely been a big part of that for me as well.
Yeah, Josh is a great guy.
Yeah.
Oh, do I have to shout one out? I feel like I'm running out. I feel like I shout out people every episode. And like, I'm gonna go with K.E. Andrews and the Hills of Feather and Bone, which I think that's what it's called. It's got a great cover. It's more in the like cozy fantasy side of things, but in that very like melancholy kind of cozy fantasy. I don't know, is that a thing? I don't know, like the cozy fantasy that's less like, it's like a hug, but it's like a hug because you're sad, and not a hug because it's warm. It's like not the Legends and Lattes kind of stuff. So I definitely recommend checking that out if that's kind of the vibe that you're looking for.
Nice.
But all right, let's move on to our next question. So let's say that you are forced to write a book outside of science fiction and fantasy. So you're forced to write a book without any speculative elements. In what genre are you writing? Bethany, we'll start with you.
Horror, hands down. Although it's going to be hard to keep any speculative elements away for me, I think. But I'm actually torn after I finish this fantasy series. I do want to genre hop, and I have 2 different whips that I've started on. I'm not allowing myself to write because then we'll never finish the series I've started, but they've got the Pinterest boards, they've got the outlines, and one of them's a sci-fi and the other one is a witchy Western horror. So horror for sure, I think.
NC?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because I actually am writing historical fiction at the moment. It's set in the Ottoman Empire. It's I've just written about 5,000 words of it, but I'll probably do something with it. I probably won't publish it under my pen name for the fantasy books. It probably have to be different because people will be expecting something else. And anyway, it's all of that thing. But historical fiction because I love history. And yeah.
Cool. I was gonna say horror, but then I think all of my horror ideas have supernatural elements in them, and I read a lot of horror, so it would be my second genre that I enjoy reading would be a thrillers. Yeah, I think I can keep that down to earth.
Very cool.
I would say like a mystery thriller. I'd be really interested to see what I could do with that. Maybe even like a heist book without the elements of fantasy.
Yeah, I would want to write something like I don't know if you guys have seen it, like A History of Violence. That movie, it's one of my favorite movies. Something along those lines. Explore the more dark side of humanity without the supernatural elements.
There's a lot of darkness in the books on this screen right now.
Yeah.
lots of blood, gore, darkness.
No, not in my book. I mean,
it's there with a wicked smile on his face.
The first scene is him killing, or in the first chapter, what happens to the guy he takes in?
I mean, we gotta have some fighting going on, right? I mean,
and then what happens to his body?
We don't talk about that.
So comedic, but still violent.
Yeah, okay, you got me.
All right, James, on to the next question.
Yeah. If you could take one prop home from a movie or a TV set, with the caveat that if it's a magical thing or undeveloped technology, it doesn't work like that. Like you can't take Harry Potter's wand or a lightsaber and have a lightsaber at home. But if you can take one prop, what is it going to be? NC.
I really love the gun from Blade Runner,
Okay.
like Deckard's gun. It's probably my favorite thing. Or of course, you got to say lightsaber.
That would be cool. Sadir?
I'm traveling at the moment, so I'm back in my old boy room, like in the house that I grew up in, and I can see a picture of Angel from Buffy, the old show. So I'm just gonna say, just because I can see it in my vision, I'm gonna say his coat, his black coat. Yeah.
Nice. Bethany.
I have a very specific answer. So I'm a huge Chris Nolan fan. I'm a huge Christian Bale fan, and I love The Dark Knight. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And ever since I saw that on screen, I wanted to take the Tumbler home and have that be my first car that I learned to drive in. I even have like a mini Hot Wheels version of it. So I think that'd be pretty neat. It'd probably just sit in my driveway and wait for the zombie apocalypse. But then you guys would know whose house to hang out at when everything goes down.
That's a crossover I don't think any of us have seen. Batman zombie apocalypse. I think Batman's surviving.
Yeah.
I would take the brown coat from Firefly, Mal's brown coat.
Oh, good
Ooh,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking I couldn't pick out like one particular item, so I'm going to cheat here, but I'm going to say like the entire wardrobe from the Netflix Shadow and Bone adaptation. Because if I was like ever given the power of like grand dictator of the world, that's the fashion sense that I would dictate every person on the planet has to ascribe to. Because like the clothes on that show, like chef's kiss, they're perfect. If you have no interest in watching the show, just like watch it on mute for a little bit. You'll get the aesthetic that I'm going for.
The Darkling is a vibe.
Yes.
So if we ever see you start dressing like that, we should watch out for a coup.
Yes.
That seemed to be what he was saying.
Yeah. Like, something's brewing. All right. So for our next question, if you got to co-author a book with any previous SPFBO finalist or winner, which SPFBO finalist or winner are you co-authoring a book with? Sadir, we'll start with you when you have an answer.
I would go with Rob J. Hayes, because I know that we have a lot of shared interests and stuff growing up. I think we're also a similar age. He might be a couple of years older than me, but I know he likes a lot of anime and video games and fun stuff like that. So I think we could cook something fun together.
Cool. Bethany?
So just going off of vibes, I've not read Legacy of the Bright Wash, but I've skimmed a bit of it. It's on my Kindle TPR, and Crystal, is it Mater or Mater?
Matar, yeah.
Matar.
Yep.
I just something about that story and writing style speaks to me and is kind of in line with even some future projects I have planned, and I'd be intrigued in collaborating.
Yeah.
Even though I'm very much not a group project person, and the thought also terrifies me of co-writing with anyone.
Yeah, I think you guys would vibe really well. We interviewed her a couple episodes back. I think you guys would vibe really well. And NC?
Yeah, so that was my answer as well. I was going to say Crystal.
Very popular.
She is, because she's working with Michael Fletcher on a project in the future. I think me and Michael have very similar writing styles, and very, very similar like themes to our books and stuff. And so I think we would get along really well, but also with Crystal as well. Yeah, it would sort of be the dream team to work with both of them. But yeah, if I had to pick SPFBO finalists, I'd definitely be Crystal. Yeah, because I'm reading Legacy now, and it's absolutely brilliant.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, so what we really need is for Crystal to create one of those just shared universe things, like George R. Martin's Wild Cards, and then everybody can just contribute stories to her world. That's what we really need.
Definitely, yeah.
I think I'd go with Thiago Abdallah. I think that I think we would create something really interesting. It would be dark and broody and all that kind of stuff, but I think it could be good.
All right, and then James, do we have one more?
We have one
Fire?
more question. And
All
this
right.
is just a silly question. If you can replace one actor in The Lord of the Rings, it can be any specific movie or the whole trilogy, in order to ruin the movie or the trilogy, who are you going to replace and with whom? Bethany.
There are so many ways to ruin that because it's just perfect as it is. But for some reason, I was drawn to Aragorn, and I was trying to think of like who is the anti-Vigo, and I just kept picturing Tom Cruise and just how, at least for me, how absolutely horrible it wouldn't just have ruined the character, it would have changed the feel of the movie, it would have changed its publicity. I think that'd be pretty cringe.
Instead of
Sadir?
My
What do you
turn?
think? Yeah.
I would replace Sir Ian McKellen with Christopher Walken as Gandalf. I think that would completely fuck up everything in a fun and creepy way.
NC?
I think I was thinking of putting Mike Myers in there somewhere. It's just this like Frodo. He's Frodo now. And just getting the ring to Mordor is just slightly racist jokes the whole way along.
Or even Mike Myers as Gollum, but in like practical effects makeup.
Yeah.
Also good. Yeah.
I was thinking of replacing Ian McKellen as well, and having Gandalf played by Kermit the Frog.
Okay.
Oh, you were there with the puppet.
Muppet.
Oh, yeah.
You shall not pass.
I also was like, we should replace Gandalf, but I went with RuPaul Charles from Ball's Drag Race. So I was like, it would totally change the vibe and not for the better. Because I don't know if you've ever seen RuPaul try to act, but it is never good.
That we made some horrible movies together. So congratulations, everybody.
All right. But I think that wraps us up, right, James?
It does. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll go around one more time. Please shout out your books and where people can find them, and then we'll wrap things up. So Bethany, where can people find your books?
So my books are on Amazon, in Kindle Unlimited and Barnes and Noble. But if you go to my website, I do have a free prequel novelette that you can get for subscribing to my newsletter. It's called From the Ashes, and it is standalone in the sense that you can read it prior to Thieves and Shadows, should you choose.
Yeah, and we'll put everybody's social media platforms and websites in the YouTube description and the episode notes on any of your podcast apps. So if you're looking for anybody too, we'll make sure I have that information. Sadir?
Yeah, you can find my book on Amazon, and if you don't want to support Amazon, I understand that, and you can get it from Silver Store Books or Book in the US, a small indie sci-fi fantasy bookshop that does a lot of great work for the indie community. Also, if you're in Sweden, there are some local shops that are kind enough to have my book as well, which is nice.
Shout out to our Swedish audience.
Awake at our Swedish audience awake at 4 a.m. No, we're not live, so yeah.
NC. Yeah, I'm the same. You can find me on Amazon. I also have a prequel novella called The Sword of Salt and Smoke that you can get by subscribing to my mailing list on my website, NC
Nice.
All right.
Thank you all so much. And thank you to our listeners for stopping by and participating either on YouTube or podcast. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to us or watching us, either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes will be posted every other Tuesday. Please follow us on Twitter and TikTok and all of our socials. Notes, all those links and things will be on the notes of this episode, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Thanks, everyone.